Please turn in your New Testament to book of Revelation, chapter 6. This message this morning may be a little ambitious. I plan on going through all 6 seals. I know. And there's a couple of reasons I'd like to do it this way. One, that's how John wrote it, like boom, 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 boom. Those of us who have looked at this passage many times have come to the conclusion that we do not know exactly when these events will take place. We're very confident they have not yet taken place like they're prescribed here. Although we have seen wars and rumors of wars for decades, if not centuries. There has been murders almost from day one of the history of Earth. But that's not what is depicted here. This is a future catastrophic series of events caused by Jesus our King breaking open, loosening seals around this scroll that's in his hand. Many of us have come to the conclusion that the first seal is open and the rider of the white horse comes to planet Earth, and he does not ride off into the sunset before the rider of the red horse appears, but rather they are right on the heels of each other as time progresses. How soon, we're not told. But most of us who have looked at this several times have thought there is no way the rider of the white horse just comes and leaves, but rather stays. So let's start there with verse 1, chapter 6. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures sing with a loud voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. I don't know about you, but in my entire church upbringing, I was taught that this is the Antichrist, the one predicted in Thessalonians as the son of perdition, the son of lawlessness, the son of all things evil, being released upon planet Earth. He's on a white horse and wearing a crown because he is the counterfeit Christ. He is the author of the spiritual war that we looked at Friday at 10 and again at 7 p.m. in the fellowship hall. We discussed briefly there the effect of the Antichrist on planet Earth with his counterfeit church. His counterfeit has priests. We have priests. They have sacrifices. We have sacrifices. They have an order, a hierarchy, a clergy. We have all of those as well. Not accidentally, it's because he is counterfeiting, trying to deceive the citizens of planet Earth with this counterfeit. If he can get people to go there and be distracted by what he has in mind, there'll be fewer people committed to, focused upon following Jesus like we should be because we're distracted by that. That was the nature of the spiritual war that we discussed on Friday. All his plan to keep us off balance, keep us thinking about other things, keep us totally distracted that we lose focus. As if we don't have enough. As if we don't have enough. Just take the illness that's plaguing our church family. That in itself is causing all kinds of commotion. I look out and I see a good friend back from his suffering. Ed, it's good to have you back. On oxygen, trying to get healed from the inside out. saying even today there's still weakness in his body. Others of you have said to me this morning that, how much more does God expect me to take? He says, I will not pile on more than you can endure, but I think I'm at my limit, says many of you. We don't need the distractions of a counterfeit Christ now. He was given a crown. I'm going to suggest that he's wearing a crown but no authority. The authority belongs to Jesus. He's described as a king wearing multiple crowns. We shall crown him with many crowns. He is the one with authority, but he's the fake king, wearing a crown to draw attention to what we may think a person would have with authority on planet Earth, especially in John's day. When he actually arrives, he may be wearing something that gives him some kind of prestigious aura. But he's granted permission by God, by the opening of this first seal, to go out and conquer. Let's read it out. Conquering and to conquer. The real Jesus frees us. The fake one enslaves us. Jesus gives us liberty. He conquers, puts people under his authority. He gives us life. His ends up in death, which is the next horse that comes on the scene. He's given a bow, and I'm sure you've sat in many a lecture about this particular verse, a bow without arrows, no quiver, no arrows. May I suggest one of two things? He has what appears to be a weapon, but no authority to do anything with that weapon. Or, as my friend Bruce would say to me, what if the bow is symbolic of the rainbow? And I said to him, well, you're thinking about me. What? I can remember right now, back in that fellowship, while looking across the table to my friend and going, huh? Hear me out. What if he is holding in his hand a bow that's symbolic of the peace he's going to bring to planet Earth, especially the Middle East, which will be short-lived, interrupted by him himself after 42 months, 3.5 years. A peace agreement that he will instigate and then break. And I said, Bruce, I never thought of it that way. So maybe the bow is symbolic of this counterfeit peace that he's going to propose to bring to the Middle East and that will ripple throughout the entire earth. But he is coming to conquer. And those who have been enslaved by him will lead up to Jesus releasing the red horse, the next two verses, verses 3 and 4. When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword. And Bruce said, see? And I saw. Maybe you've got something there. He is granted permission to bring peace and then take it away. And when that peace is removed, people will kill each other. Many commentators suggest that this kill would be more accurately translated murder, just like the commandment, thou shalt not kill, is more accurately translated, thou shalt not murder. Premeditatedly take somebody else's life. Let's read it that way. Another horse, fiery red, went out and was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, that people should murder one another. That is rampant, is it not? The news is just riddled with people murdering each other. I'm going to suggest to you that that is a shadow of what's to come. Those are drastic, horrible images of what will be taking place, not here and there, but globally. Peace will be taken from the planet, and people will say, hey, there's no law. Let's do what we want. There's no consequences. You have what I want. I'm going to take it. Oh, you don't want to give it to me? Too bad. Too bad. And we see this going on way too much. But that's not the consequence of this seal. That's the consequence of the evil of sin in the hearts of humans. This is consequented by Jesus opening a seal and allowing a person on a red horse to come and cause people to murder one another. And he has a sword, an article of violence, a weapon, perhaps to insist upon, maybe to say, either you kill him or I kill you. I don't know. It's not what it says. He says he has on his being a sword. Before he exits, on the heels of the white horse is the red one, comes the next horse. Verses 5 and 6. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a black horse. And he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. Do no harm to the oil and the wine. Well, that sounds strange. Not to them in that century. In John's day, a denarius would be equal to 1 day's wage. Now, I don't know what you earned in a day at the peak of your earning days. I don't think it was $1. I don't think it was a denarius. But can you imagine buying the ingredients for 1 loaf of bread for a day's wage? I'm going to call that hyperinflation. And we're on the verge of that, aren't we? Historically, hyperinflation has brought, I want to say war, people killing each other. I looked it up on the internet. In Europe during 45 and 46, inflation reached, are you ready? 207% a day. Compare that to our inflation rate, which is 3.2 this year, or the year 2023. 3.2 in a year, 200 every day. That means what you bought today is going to cost 200% more tomorrow. Well, that's where it was in Europe. In Zimbabwe in 2007, 2008, it was only 98% per day, half as much. And of course, the people just sat around and took it. No, they took what they wanted because they didn't want to starve to death. And this is what the big uproar is right now, even in our own country, about our inflation rate. We're claiming that it's the highest it's been in 40 years, and we're whining and moaning about 3% in 12 months. Perhaps we should, but perhaps we ought to thank God that it's not 100% or 200%. But then we'd have trouble. Again, I repeat that these events are not coming, stopping, coming, stopping, coming. I'm suggesting that inflation is coming on the heels of murder, which came on the heels of the Antichrist, which is going to come onto the heels of the next one and on the next one. It starts and it does not stop. Well, it will stop eventually, but not at the conclusion of a day or a week or maybe even a month. The Bible doesn't say, but it does not say he will come for a while and then leave. In our study of 1 John, we realize the Bible says, even in the days of John, there were already spirits of Antichrist in the world, and that's in the first century. He also predicted there's coming a day when the Antichrist will come. Paul wrote about the same person, only he didn't call him the Antichrist, because that word only appears in John's letters. He called him the son of lawlessness, the liar, the serpent, the devil. This is why that discussion Friday was so well attended and so well participated in, is because people are thinking, what can I do as a man, as a woman, as a mom and a dad, a grandparent, to protect my family from what we see is obviously taking place? And John is predicting will get worse. Footnote. My theology says we won't be here when this happens. But yeah, that's my view of the scriptures, that the rapture will take place before the opening of the first seal. There are many of my friends who disagree with me. Oh no, we will be here at least during these, and we will witness this. We won't be taken out until the middle, when the Antichrist fully and completely reveals himself, when he says to the world, I'm God, worship me, which will come mid-tribulation, midway through the 7 year of tribulation. Others say, no, the church will be here until the beginning of the Great Tribulation. And we will get into that when we get into the other chapters, the opening of the 7th seal. You'll not want to miss that one. The 7th seal has multiple parts. Those of you who have studied this, you're already thinking, yeah, there's vials in the King James, bowls in the others. There's trumpets. Thunders. Do you realize John was asked to not write down what the thunders brought? Sound familiar? Daniel is told some things are going to happen, and he's told by the Lord, seal that up. I kind of think that's what this scroll is. I kind of think that what Daniel sealed up way back then is now being unrolled and revealed here in the future. May I suggest this, mom and dad, grandparents? One of the things we can do to help protect our family is twofold. One, teach them that Jesus is real and the Bible is true, so that they have a firm foundation for faith in God, and they begin to trust God at a very young age. This is so important that even today, your children next door are being taught about the baptism, so that when next Sunday arrives, they're prepared for what they may see as a swimming pool by the Sunday school teachers who are faithfully explaining to them what this is really all about. Now, that won't stop them from wanting to play in the water, but it'll still begin to build a foundation for understanding why baptism is so important. Secondly, that we create in our home a sanctuary, a place that our children grandkids, great-grandkids, can come where it's safe. Not undisciplined, safe. When it gets too rough out there, they know where to go. They go to Grandma's house, your house. The illustration I was given as a young man was a boxing ring. The boxer in the fight knows exactly where to go when he hears the bell. Where does he go? To his corner. What happens there? He is patched up, highly stinging, caustic stuff is put on his open wound to stop the bleeding, and he is told by his coach, you got him. You got him right where you want him. And you're sitting there on that stool thinking, I got him? That's Jesus telling you, you got the devil right where I want him. He thinks he's winning when he's already lost. So create a home that's safe, where the Bible is taught and Christian love is lived. Next verse. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard a voice of the fourth living creature saying, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death and Hades. Let me read that correctly. And the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Wow. I hope I'm gone when he arrives. Now, death is death. Hades is incorrectly translated too many times as hell. Hades is equivalent to the Hebrew word Sheol, the place of the dead. So let's read it that way. So death and the place of the dead followed death. So they're dying and cast into Hades, not hell, the place of the dead. Now, they may turn up to be hell, but nonetheless, that's not what John is seeing, hearing, and recording. A black horse, and the rider that sat upon it brings death. Do you notice the way death is going to be coming in this period of time? Quote, sword, hunger, death, and beasts. So power was given to him to create death, to kill with the sword, to cause death by the sword. We're seeing too much of that on television. Hunger. Well, I'm not surprised about that, since hyperinflation has hit. Hunger should follow that logically, wouldn't you think? But I think it's going to be worse than that. I think this writer is going to say, not enough people are dying, starving to death, so I'm going to increase it. Because I've been given the authority to do that. Over how much of the planet Earth? 1/4. Does that mean that God took the map of Earth and said, okay, here's 1/4. You can attack that and leave the rest alone? You can have 25% of the whole thing. I think this is global. That's going to be taking place all over the planet. and by beasts. I don't know how to translate that other than just taking it literally. That during this period of time, animals will turn upon humans and become more beastly than we ever thought possible. Some have suggested animals that we thought would never do this are now doing this. I can't imagine a turtle dove attacking somebody ferociously. But then I watched Alfred Hitchcock's movie. No, those weren't doves, but I can't imagine my barnyard chicken attacking me. But then again, the rooster, you see where I'm going with this? How many of us have pets at home? What if this writer says, it's time, and that little putty cat that you have suddenly scratches your eyeballs out? This is why you want to be gone. Now notice the next vision. It goes from planet Earth to heaven. Are you with me? Verse 9. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Then a white robe was given to them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. Now there's another glimpse of time in heaven. John sees this back in the first century. He sees the souls of those who have been martyred for Christ under an altar saying, when? And Jesus says, wait a little while. You think they turn to Peter and go, let's see, a day's like 1,000 years. We got to be more patient. I don't think they were patient at all. But that's my opinion, because I'm just a grumpy old man. So I'm thinking that they were thinking, Lord, it is time for you to avenge our blood. We spilt it preaching your name. Go get them. Now, we're going to read a couple of verses in a minute. And if you're thinking that way, I'm going to suggest, after we quote a couple of these verses, you back off a degree or so. Go get them is what you're seeing here. So when you're saying to God, it's time, get them. This is just the prelude to what the seventh seal is going to cause to happen to those who took the lives of these people, which many scholars think are identified in chapter 7, so you'll need to not miss that one either, when perhaps these martyrs are identified in Scripture. Now, while the focus has left earth, the first four, gone to heaven and the altar, John's vision is now expanded to the other parts of the universe. Verse 12. I looked, and when he opened the sixth seal, behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became like blood, and stars of heaven fell to the earth, and as a fig tree drops its late figs, when it's shaken by a mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll, when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. That sounds catastrophic to me. I think planet Earth is going to get quite a, are you listening to me? Shake up. Verse 15, and the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave, every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us, Hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb. That tells me they're not unaware of where this is coming from. So this, I didn't know, isn't going to fly. God is saying they know exactly what's causing this. Now let's back up a little bit. The great earthquake, I think, comes to planet Earth, and it's so severe and so global that the Bible is literally telling us how bad it's going to be. Mountains will be moved. Kind of like what happened when the flood happened and the earth gave up its water from below. Marcia and I believe, and we teach our kids that, that's when these giant mountain ranges were formed. When God released the water from above, he just cracked open the earth. All of that will be shaken to its core by this earthquake. Rocks will fall, and men will hide in caves saying, hide me from him, from his wrath. Now, how about the stars falling from heaven? Verse 13. If one star even came close to earth, it would destroy us. This says stars, plural. Therefore, Bruce and I concluded that God is not talking about stars as we know them as heavenly beings. Well, they're heavenly beings because we think they're angels. And we think there's scriptures that back up that. In fact, they're in Revelation. We've already seen them once in Revelation chapter 1, where John sees Jesus and he has in his right hand, what? 7 stars. And he identifies those 7 stars as angels. So there it is. So Bruce and I came to the conclusion that it's stars, angels that fall. Our other bit of evidence comes from Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. When talking about the beast, Satan, quote, verse 4, chapter 12, Revelation, his tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to earth. I don't think the devil has the power to take 33% of the stars in our atmosphere and cast them upon earth. I think it's a metaphor for angels, demons. I think fallen angels are demonic. And God is saying there will come a day when demons will fall to earth like figs fall from a tree in the springtime. Plop, 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 plop. Therefore, be ready. Now, those of us who are inclined to say, bring it on, verse 17. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? I repeat, who indeed will be able to stand among the falling demonic beings, earthquakes, and judgment? The great day of his wrath. See, that's my personal opinion of these 7 seals. These represent the wrath of God, not historical events that have been happening since day whatever, since Cain killed Abel, but rather has been going on planet Earth for at least that long. This is the wrath of God being unleashed upon those who have rejected the only hope for life. This is why I think everybody is given a chance by God to accept and believe upon Jesus. I believe, multiple chances. Because this is the consequences of saying, no, 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 leave me alone, please, I don't want it. God will eventually say, and this is what you get. Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 14 through 16. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near and hastens quickly. The noise of the day of the Lord is bitter. There the mighty men shall cry out that the day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of devastation and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet and alarm against the fortified cities and against the high towers. It will not be a pleasant day. If that's not strong enough for you, consider Joel chapter 2. The sun and moon grow dark. The stars diminish their brightness. For the day of the Lord is great and terrible. Who can endure it? You see, God's already told us by the prophet Joel what John is reminding us in chapter 6, verse 17. When that day of wrath comes, who will be able to stand? Who indeed? This is why we preach the gospel of Christ. Those who do not suffer the wrath of God are the redeemed, for you have not been appointed to wrath. God never intended anybody to receive his wrath against unbelief. He desires all to come to his Son, Jesus. But those who do not suffer the consequences. Now think about this in closing. God so loved us, he sent his Son to die on the cross, to bleed, to die, to be humiliated by the sinfulness of man for one reason only, to pay the price of sin. And for decades and centuries prior to that event, God said, when that day comes, believe on my Son. From that day forward until today, God has been saying, today is the day of your salvation. Today is the day. If you refuse this day one time too many, the day is gone. The opportunity is over. And because we reject that, his love, his Son, you pay. Now, I don't want to scare you into heaven. Yes, I do.